Hi and welcome to Thisisfootball.Africa, and today my guest is a good friend of mine. I've known him for, believe it or not, over 40 years, and it's the one and only Rob Moore. Rob, believe it or not, started off as a goalkeeper, and a very good goalkeeper he was too. In fact, he had trials at Spurs and Luton, became a good friend of Glenn Hoddle's. But where he really made his name is when he entered the media world, and he started Kickoff, and Kickoff became a household name in this country and actually changed media. And funny enough, he was an inspiration, and Kickoff was an inspiration for me to start Soccer Laduma. And we ended up having a great rivalry, a positive rivalry. It was a kind of Boca Juniors versus River Plate. I was probably the Boca Juniors. You guys were too classy. But and then while he was successful at Kickoff, he started Seven Stars. They won promotion to the PSL. They had an exciting team. I think they won promotion with the most points ever. And then he revolutionized South African football by doing the merger with Seven Stars and Cape Town Spurs and starting Ajax Cape Town, which were 51% or 49% owned by Ajax Amsterdam. And that Ajax Cape Town team produced some of the best talent we've seen in this country ever. It was a young team, a young squad, with players that I think you probably produced more Bafana players than any other club at the time, which was phenomenal, and probably sent more players overseas than any other club at that time as well, or probably even in history. And obviously Benny McCarthy being one of the biggest exports there, and Stephen Pienaar. And then Rob obviously ventured into the player agency world, and I think if you compare him to the big time agents all over the world, he stands equal to them on the particular basis that not only did he discover three of the most exciting talents and has the ability to do that, but he brought them through to playing top level football in Europe, and all of them playing in European Cup finals, and that's the highest game you can play in the world. And I'm talking about obviously our own Benny McCarthy, Victor Wanyama, who is from Kenya and played for Spurs, and obviously Christian Pulisic currently at Chelsea. So I mean, it's an incredible achievement, Rob. And I think when you look back 40 years when you're a goalkeeper, if someone said to me, Rob Moore, this is what his CV is going to look like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I would say, come on, guys, that maybe one of them, not all three. And actually, there's four. He's a good guy as well. So, Rob, I think you can look back on your career, and it's not over, and say, man, what a journey.
Peter, it's been a great journey. A lot of emotional highs and lows, and you got to, it's a little bit like being in a boxing ring. You got to handle those punches. Sometimes the 8 count is really close, or the 10 count is really close, but you got to dust yourself up and keep going like any good football club needs to, yeah. And it's I've loved the game. I think we're both fortunate. We've both been able to earn a living out of doing something we're really passionate about and we really love. And we talk a lot from good at the game. You arm wrestle, you try get your best deals for your players. You try get the best deal for your club when you're trying to sign a player. You try get the most advertising income as you can when you've got a magazine. But that's just competitiveness. But underpinning all of that is a passion.
So, Rob, you actually hit that word I want to use, competitiveness, is for the subject of our discussion today. Because what's lacking in the South African PSL right now is competitiveness. Sundowns, 10 out of 10 to them. They by far the best team in the PSL, and wonderfully for South Africa, one of the top teams in Africa. They challenge in Africa. But it's not a good thing that basically they had the league won. By December, we knew. In fact, from almost day one, we knew Sundowns are going to win this league, and they wrapped it up so early. And that's not a good sign for the league. It's not a good sign for Chiefs or Pirates. They've also got big money behind them. So why are Mamelodi Sundowns so far ahead? And what do Chiefs and Pirates have to do to challenge them properly? Obviously, it's not a quick fix. And you who've been from the player recruitment side with a club, you run a club in the PSL, you've been successful there, you understand from recruiting players from an agency point of view, and you understand marketing as well. What do Chiefs and Pirates and the rest of the league got to do to get themselves to truly start challenging Mamelodi Sundowns?
Well, very simple. They've got to do what Mamelodi Sundowns have done. And what is that? Quality ownership. Ownership who have resources to be in the game. The league now is filled with too many clubs where owners shouldn't be in the game because they don't really have the resources, and we move backwards in terms of players not getting paid, players getting paid late, all these kinds of hard luck stories. Better quality ownership. Sundowns has a quality ownership. Number 2, ownership that understand the game and employ the right people. Hlopie Motsepe runs his club. He runs it really well. He's got Flemingberg, a highly experienced sports director, running the football side of his club, and which then in turn means good quality coach that's in place, good quality recruitment, and a good structure. So it's really, and then number 3, progressive off the field. Sundowns have been quite, progressive off the field. They try to be innovative, and so it's, Peter, it's that simple. You've just got to copy that. The problem is that that on those 3 pillars, too many clubs falter on 2 of the 3. Maybe the quality of the ownership's not good enough, or not, doesn't have the resources, or the wobbly leg is, well, they've got the resources, but they don't have the right people in place that are meant to be running the show. Or they've got the money, they've got the right people running the show, but they aren't innovative, and they aren't, they don't capitalize on in terms of off the field stuff in order to create a bigger club. So that's really, they just need to copy Sundowns.
One other point, though, I think Chiefs and Pirates in particular, they've got the resources. Whether they've got the right people is to be fair to them, they've spent money on players. They pay good salaries, so it's not like they're not going out there and trying to buy players. And they've all got youth setups as well and connections to other clubs that bring them young players. But is the planning in this? Is there proper planning when it comes to what their youth structure should look like and what they should develop? Is there proper planning in what their first team squad should look like? Is there proper planning in what their first 11 should look like for today and tomorrow? That's the question I want to ask you.
The disappointment is their competition. It's Chiefs and Pirates really, it just isn't, they aren't really the kind of factor in the game from a competitive point of view that their status and their history should suggest that they should be. And that's a factor of so many things, that have gone wrong. But I think also, and Peter, football is, football thrives on rivalries. Boca Juniors, River Plate. You talk about Manchester City, Manchester United. Some years back, Everton, Liverpool. Those Barca, Real Madrid. Football needs more than one team in any league. You look at even now Germany. Bayern Munich wins so many leagues and in a row. Again, fantastically run club. Not their fault that they're winning so many leagues. The others need to up their game. And as we say, the others, South African football, originally they reduced the league from 18, I think, to 16. And the aim was to get better quality teams into the league and make sure it was more competitive. But Peter, I've been disappointed, to be honest. I think the league ownerships and the level of ownerships and the quality of ownerships of clubs in South Africa has actually regressed. We're back to points where some players aren't getting paid on time. There's these kind of unpleasant situations. Who is vetoing? Who is doing the testing of people who want to buy clubs in South Africa? Where is it stringent? It's clearly not stringent because it's what's been allowed to come into the game is a lower level of owner. And the hard luck stories about, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. Peter, to be honest, and I'm being a little, this might sound very cold, But if you can't afford it, don't be in the game, pal.
Correct.
You know that because
you can't afford a sports car. Don't go in the showroom. You can go and look, but you can't buy one.
Exactly. And for the game to move forward, at Ajax Cape Town, we had some resources, but resources that we had to work hard for. We had a big front of shirt sponsor, but why? Because we were innovative in terms of what were the rights that we offered our sponsor. You know, our players would go into the townships, they would do coaching, they would do talks to the schools, to the kids, blah, blah, blah. And there was a big social responsibility element, which allowed us then to tap into other budgets of the sponsor. So,
just going back to Chiefs and Pirates, I agree with you. The ownership of the league is not the level it was. The ownership of clubs within the league is not the level it was previously. But that doesn't really play into why Chiefs and Pirates are underperforming so badly. The rivalry, I agree, is not there. But Chiefs and Pirates both get big money from Vodacom. They pay their players well, by the way. It's not a case of they are paying their players well. So it's not like they skimp in, and players get paid on time. If you look at the Chiefs Pirates players, they travel, in top class luxury buses. They've got everything there to support them as a player, just like the Sundowns guys. So Sundowns may have a bigger support staff than the Chiefs and Pirates, but they're certainly Chiefs and Pirates not lacking in support staff to the players. They can buy any player they like, basically. They don't have the money probably that Sundowns have, but they still make ways and means to buy players. And they pay their players well, and they look after their players well, both clubs. So we can't say they're doing that badly. Are they not getting the right coaches? Are they not getting the right players? Or is it a bigger picture that there's no plan? I mean, you've been there. You actually challenged Chiefs, Pirates, and Sundowns from coming at the very bottom. Ajax Cape Town, 7 Stars and Ajax Cape Town challenged for league titles. 50,000 people used to watch Ajax Cape Town play Kaizer Chiefs. So you understood how to build it. What do they have to do to challenge again? Because they are spending money on players from a salary point of view.
Well, Peter, what we tried to do when we had Ajax Cape Town was we tried to create an environment where players wanted to be in that environment. So it was, in a media sense, I would say we try to create an advertising agency type of vibe where people want to come in, they want to come to work in the day, during the day. It was young, it was energetic. It was let's go out and conquer type of vibe, And we were able to, through a combination of making average players better and finding good young players and being fearless about playing them. Why fearless? Because we had a technical structure and we had a tactical plan and we had a philosophy that was consistent from the first team down to the under nines. And, if we had a 15, 16-year-old who we had a whole lot of injuries and we had to draft him into the first team because of an emergency, and we told him, you have to go and play position 7, he would know what position 7 entailed. Because
so Rob, sorry to interrupt, would you say Chiefs and Pirates, because you make a very good point, are they fearless? Would you find them, you're fully involved in the league, you understand. Would you say Kaizer Chiefs today are fearless when it comes to Sundowns and their rivals? Would you say Pirates are fearless? If you look at the kind of football they play, the kind of players in their teams, they play and play as well, but are they fearless? Have they created that kind of vibe?
Well, I would say this, Peter, in my day, and I don't always like to harp on about my day, but we need to understand where we've come from to where we are now. In my day, there was a magic about Chiefs. You hosted Chiefs in Cape Town for a home game. They got off the bus and there was an aura about them. There was an aura around the players because the players were quality. When I started 7 Stars, I went back and signed 2 legend Kaizer Chiefs players who were both, generally speaking, at the end of their career. They were in the sunset of their career. Chippa Molatedi and Trevor Mtankulu. And why did I do that? As you said, to provide the X factor, the Hollywood factor. I knew that even at this stage of their career, they would be good enough to get the job done that I needed, and that was get out of the second tier into the top tier. But they had an aura about them. They were pros. People looked at them and said, wow. They walked into the dressing room, and the local guys who we'd promoted and got, they would look, and it was like a gee whiz type of, this is my teammate, Well,
they're looking at Tabamuki, they're looking at Dr. Kumala, looking at Sheikh Sungwani, they're looking at Bolan Dladla,
You don't have that today. Where are those gee whiz players? They aren't around anymore. They haven't recruited them. If I looked particularly quite closely at Chiefs in the first 6 months of the season, because obviously I'm following them with Blom playing there, okay?
Yeah.
And Jabulo Blom.
Well done for taking it to America, by the way.
No, thanks, Peter. That's another program. But I looked at that, and I looked at the recruitment and what they brought in. There wasn't one gee whiz out of those guys that had come in, and I just think that that's been lost a little bit, But then it leads off to a bigger picture, Peter. How many of South African players are gee whiz these days? We've fallen a little bit off an edge, off a cliff, in the eyes of Europe. We aren't a factor in Europe anymore, and that's obviously because we don't qualify for World Cups. We've rarely qualified for Nations Cups, African Nations Cups, although we have done now, blah blah blah.
And that's didn't qualify for AFCON either.
Exactly. And if you aren't relevant at these international tournaments, you aren't relevant in world football anymore. It's as simple as that. And that's a pity, because the Chiefs and the Pirates aren't able to recruit gee whiz because there aren't many gee whiz out there anymore.
But Rob, surely Kaizer Chiefs, every young player in this country, whether we like it or not, wants to play for Chiefs, Pirates, or Sundowns. So Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns should be able to have the pick of the crop of the best young players throughout the country. If they've got decent scouting systems, and within those players from the under 9s to the under 20s, under 23s, how can they not, in the last X amount of years, find those gee whiz players? Because South African players have got ability. There's no discussion. Because,
Peter, there's a critical window. There's a window of 17 to 20 years old. So if I'm the parent of a 14, 15-year-old kid, and Pirates, Chiefs, or Sundowns want to sign my kid, put him into the academy, okay? Fantastic. Because why? Because I know what I'm getting out of there is probably a better education, footballing education for my kid than I would at other places. But then what? When my kid is 17, 18, you aren't seeing 17, 18-year-olds getting a chance in the first team. So there becomes this lost chapter between 17 and 20, where those players should be transitioning into first team minutes and creating themselves as young stars. They're not, because the pathway is blocked. Why? Because coaches and ownership are not bold enough. In Ajax Cape Town, we were bold. We played young players. And why? Because we believed the quality of what we'd recruited. If you believe in the quality, you got to put them in. And that's the only way you get back to the point where you are talking about having gee whiz players. Yeah. I mean, you saw Rulani address the point the other day in a press conference about this young kid that got 16 years old, and he was saying, yes, it's an exciting player, but you got to respect the guys who are there doing it week in and week out. I agree with him. But if this kid at 16 has got the potential, we need to understand that we have to be in the business of creation, of hero creation. And
look at Arsenal, youngest team in the Premier League.
Exactly.
No fear in the way they play.
Soccer Saka for now seems like a veteran. Bukayo Saka, you know?
I think he's not even 22.
Yeah, exactly.
Man City's bench is filled with young players.
Yes. And Phil Foden, okay, he came through a little bit slower than Jadon Sancho, but did at Dortmund, but he still got in, and he got into a very top side, and he got his minutes. But there was a plan, you understand? Malula's burst.
How old was Pulisic when he played for Dortmund?
16 or 17.
There's your answer.
No? And you look at Malula. Malula's sort of lauded as the bright young star. Malula's 21 already. Let's not forget that. You know, I mean, at 21, you should normally have. Well, look at Luke Leroux. Luke Leroux at Varbergs in Sweden, small club, but he's playing in the first team. But at 22, he's got 80 odd matches.
Yeah,
in the top league of Sweden behind his name. You know.
Yeah. In Europe,
and you look, and I did this exercise with Blom, and actually when I was trying to look at putting in another player into Chiefs, I looked at their midfield. It was either one extreme of players 30 plus who had played like 200 games, or the other extreme was early 20s but who had less than 30 games or 20 games under their belt. There was nothing in the middle. Where was 25, 26, 27 of 200 games?
Yeah.
There was nothing. So what does that tell me?
Planning.
Poor squad planning.
Yeah.
Balance.
So then, Rob, you would say, and I would tend, Chiefs and Pirates may even agree with you, and maybe because they gave coaches and managers too much power. Who knows? We don't know. Or maybe because we don't know who does who does their squad planning, because squad planning is not just about buying a big name player. Their planning at Kaizer Chiefs in particular, based on what you just said, has not been as good as it should be. And, maybe now that they've brought in Kaizer Jr. to take over football, maybe that will make a change. But that's obviously the first thing. There are two things very clear that you say. One, you can't have fear if you want to challenge anybody. You've got to be brave. And brave in all aspects, I would imagine, of the game. And second,
100%.
You've got to plan your squad that X amount are under the age of 20. Your 20-year-olds have got to have games under their belt, and you've got to have experience there as well. We're going to carry you through the tough times. And if you look at the Chiefs team, that's not there. I mean, the experienced player, Dolly, doesn't carry the team. He's got a lot of ability. When he was at Ajax Cape Town, I thought he was going to be a superstar, even at Sundowns. Unfortunately, didn't reach the heights that he should have, and that's maybe a question we can talk about at another stage. But then their young players they don't look like they're going to be the new Whiz players that we see, besides maybe Shabalala. But he's over 20 and he doesn't have that many games on his belt. There's a lot of responsibility on one man's shoulders. So planning to Chiefs out there, you saying you've got to have proper planning when it comes to your squad. And it's not just planning for today, it's planning for tomorrow.
Exactly. And I mean, how many times we go into meetings with clubs and they describe the profile of the player that they're trying to recruit. So every position. So my experience in Europe, and I'm not sure if this happens in South Africa, I haven't seen it, but you go into a meeting, they say, okay, they'll give you a piece of paper with the formation of the team laid out, and then they will highlight within that formation, what are they looking for? Okay. And let's just say they're looking for a position number 6. They've got a set criteria: minimum height, age range, level of experience. Is it a young one that is a backup? Is it an experienced leader that needs to, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got, you've got a very clear pattern or very clear a roadmap on what you need to be, that they believe is going to take them to the promised land. And that's what you want in football, Peter. You want any number of teams who can win the league, and you want rivalries. Football is tribal. It's tribal, Peter. Yeah. It's tribal. It's not a hate is a strong word to use, but I use it in the best possible competitive way. You want fans to be at each other.
Yeah.
You want rival fans to be. The day the rivalry lost something for me with Chiefs and Pirates was the day they teamed up and they got the same sponsors.
Yeah.
And they made 1 and 1 in their mind equal 3. Yes, commercially,
but not on
what about the fan on the terraces?
Yeah.
You know, he saw the same the two biggest rivals with the same shirt sponsors, or the same this, the same that. It's like one day I walked into, I don't know if you remember in the MLS, there used to be a team called Chivas USA.
Yeah, Mexican team.
Yes. And Chivas USA was based in Los Angeles, as was LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the training ground for a meeting, and they both trained at the same training ground. And I walked into the reception, and there were 2 logos on the flipping on the desk. And if I turned right and went down that corridor, I went to Chivas's offices. If I turned left, I went to Galaxy's offices. It was the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life.
And Chivas is no more in the States.
Chivas is no more. And you know, and so my point is, get back to magical players, better quality ownership, more intelligently using your resources, and get back to creating real rivalries where the fans, where it's hardcore to go to a derby, because because under no circumstances do our fans want to lose this game. You know.
Yeah. Rob, I think that's fantastic for today. I want to warn you, we want to talk about, I've got people telling me they want to talk about Benny and they want to talk about Pulisic and a host of other subjects, which we'll leave for next time, next week or the week after, but we'll keep in touch. So I want to thank you. I've enjoyed it. I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy it as well, Rob.
Okay, perfect, Peter. So have I. Until next time.